Hi, hello and welcome back. My name is Devraj, this is Bioenergetics. I wanted to talk a little bit today about power and the experience and the feeling of having personal power, which is invariably, a good feeling to feel like we have a sense of power. And my personal experience of that growing up initially came through opposition, through opposing something. And well, what happened basically was I came from quite a traumatized background where my original parents had left me, and I'd been brought up in an environment I wasn't so happy with in many ways. And when I got to be like 17, 18, I just left, went to London, got a job, then dropped out and kind of gravitated to street level, was a punk and lived in squats for a long time in around Camden and North London and this kind of thing. And what was very busy and present in my unconscious and in my mind then was that all forms of kind of hierarchy and structure were basically wrong. They were wrong, and they needed to be opposed. And I was a bit scared to oppose them, but at some point I started to go on to protest marches. There was things like Stop the City going on in those days back in the 80s. And we would go on these marches into the city of London and just start chanting and shouting, and the cops would be there. It was kind of a ritualized engagement, and it gave me a sense of power. It gave me a sense of power. Having something to push against, to fight against, to say that I was against, gave me a sense of power. But as I grew older through my 20s and my 30s, that started to dissipate, and I came to understand that I was being given this sense of power by the thing I was opposing, not in a direct way, but in an indirect way. I was being given power by the kind of the hierarchical structure, patriarchy, state, whatever, that I was opposing. And so my sense of power was dependent on them being powerful, because if they were powerful, then I could feel powerful to kind of oppose this. And then in my late 30s, when I started to do therapy and untangle all of these things, and came to realize that some of my childhood relationships had caused me to have a strong traumatic reaction to any form of hierarchy or top-down authority, or basically, then I started to feel powerless for a while. I felt weak, I felt vulnerable, I felt like I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't trust my own. My perception of the world was that it was fundamentally wrong, and whilst I could believe in that and oppose it, it gave me a sense of power and meaning. And when I could see that that was more an internal process, and started to challenge my own way I was looking at the world, so I lost power, and I started to feel weak and vulnerable. And that was also a good process, to be honest. That was a good process. And these days, what started to happen for me was I started to grow my own power center. Not until my sort of mid to late 40s, basically, from my belly, and my own sense of, okay, this is my own direction. It's not to do with the outside. It's not in opposition to something else that's going on around me. It's not just to back up something that's going on around me. This is me, my own sense of direction from my own power center. And, just looking, for me, that is a really, really valuable experience to have, and it's a really, really valuable thing to grow inside of yourself. And you can't really do it until you stop simply reacting to something on the outside, basically. Because otherwise, I see these days in our culture, the kind of old patriarchal, hierarchical structures are under threat like they haven't been for hundreds of years. They're being pounded from all sides. And that happens because the people doing that get a sense of power from it. So they repeat the behavior, and they all just do it. They pound and pound. But as that society they're pushing in starts to crumble, they will experience a loss of meaning, and and it will be hard, because they're only getting power from the patriarchal structure in the first place, or broadly they're only getting power from this structure. So it's not that opposing these things is wrong. It's just to understand the power dynamics, and that ideally where you want to be moving towards is having your own power center, which is a felt experience within your sense of the body, from the belly, where, okay, this is who I am, and this is where I want to move to, and I'm clear about that. I'm not doing it in opposition to something else. I think, it takes a while to develop this. It's unrealistic to expect many people in their 20s, say, or 30s to develop this. It does take time, and we have to be in society and see the games our mind is playing and where they get to. And of course, being in your 20s, I just about remember it these days, is like, we have this Teflon ego. We have this Teflon ego. It's not easy to look inside with any depth at that age, because it's a kind of, genetic, acquired, adaptive response that we immediately project internal stuff out and see it in the world outside and then oppose it there. So, this process is kind of hardwired in us, and it would take someone with a lot of awareness at that age to start to really confront their own projections, or the possibility that they're simply projecting out. I mean, I see young people doing it, doing that, which is totally amazing. I mean, I was completely incapable of doing anything like that at that age. I was just totally locked up in my vision of how the world was and how it should be, and what I was going to do to move it from one to the other with this sense of power that I was getting from the structure. Anyway, I just wanted to make a video about this, because I think it's useful to understand that if you look at your life and where you get a sense of power from is through opposing something that's outside of you, then that is temporary and short-lived, and basically you're caught up in this kind of struggle is my life kind of dynamic, where you're reliant on something to fight against in order to kind of experience a sense of power within yourself. And it really doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be like that. With work, we can find our own center and move out from there. Okay, thank you for listening. Feel free to check out my website on bioenergetics, bioenergetics.org.uk, and all of that stuff. And I'll speak to you guys later. Thank you.